Okay, let's start. Welcome to our talk. So it's going to be about accessibility. So how good accessibility can improve user experiences for everyone. So yes, Let's start with a short introduction of ourselves. So we are Jonas and Yannick, and we are both work at Bolt, the digital experience unit of Ordina. My name is Jonas. I'm a UX UI designer, and I currently work for Keytrade Bank. I'm working on some different products there to improve the user experience for clients of Keytrade Bank. I'm also working on the new mobile app and some other really cool projects there. And then, my colleague Yannick will also introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Yannick. I'm also working for Ordina for 8 years now, and currently I'm working at TVH or Mateco, it's the international name, as a front-end developer. We're working on new cool front ends, doing cool stuff, and one of the things you're going to see in my demo. But first, back to Jonas.
Yes, thank you. All right. First, some topics which we will discuss during this talk. First, we're going to have a short introduction on what is accessibility, what do you see around accessibility, etc. Then we're going to talk about why accessibility is important for your business or for the business you work for, so you can convince stakeholders. Then a short topic around designing with accessibility in mind, which I'm not going to dive too deep into design details, but just some general rules. And then last but not least, a demo about from Yannick about developing with accessibility in mind, where he's going to take a look at a project he's been done in the past few months and see how you can develop with accessibility in mind. So that's the main schedule of today's talk. First, what is accessibility? As you can see, I also put the short name for accessibility there, A11Y. And why is it A11Y? Because between the A and the Y, there are 11 characters between, and that's also in the field why it's being called A11Y. But let's call it accessibility for now to keep it simple. So what is accessibility? First of all, we are all different. Some of us have bad vision, some of us are maybe colorblind, some of us might have a different kind of disability, either small or a large disability. It doesn't matter. So that means that we want that everyone has the ability to access. That's the main idea around accessibility: the ability to access and benefit from the system, from some system or entity. So it doesn't matter if it's either digital or in a physical product. So it's really around the ability to access any kind of system or entity or product. So the goal is to enable access for people with disabilities, not only disabilities, we're also going to talk about it, and also to enable access through the use of assistive technology. So if we want to give a definition to accessibility, it's treating everyone, so everyone with any kind of disability or no disability. So treating everyone, no matter what their ability, the same way. So everyone has the same rights and same opportunities. If we are going to look at some examples around the real world, not digital, but in the real world, first one is the tactile pavements, also known as the Tenji blocks or the tactile blocks. This is an amazingly simple solution that solves so much. It's a system of textured ground surface that indicates that some walks or some pavements can be easier to detect with a cane or by foot. It has two types, one with parallel lines, as you can see here, and one with dotted lines, or dotted with dots, just dots. And this warns you, the first one with the lines guides you into a direction. So if it's horizontal, you need to go to the left or right. If it's vertical, you can go forward or backward. And the one with the dots is something that warns you about some danger or crossroads. Another example is a low floor bus. So the goal of this kind of bus, the low floor bus, is to eliminate the stairs. So the difference in height between the bus's floor and the sidewalk is small. So anybody can step in more quickly and easily, which is a byproduct. Then if we're going to have a look at digital accessibility, more into our field in the digital landscape, what is digital accessibility? And there you can see that websites, tools, other technologies are designed and developed so people with disabilities can use them, including auditory disabilities, cognitive, neurological, physical, speech, and visual disabilities. But on the other end, also people without disabilities, just people like you and me, also benefits from these accessible products. For example, people using mobile phones, smartwatches, smart TVs, and other devices with smaller screens or different input methods. For example, older people with changing abilities due to aging. People with temporary disabilities, for example, a broken arm or lost glasses, things like that. People with situational limitations, such as when you're outside and having bright sunlight on your screen, or an environment where they cannot listen to audio, for example. Things like that can also, if we design for them, it can also improve the user experience. If we then look at some examples around digital accessibility, for example, pictures on the web, it's best to name them in a way that people can read them or read them or listen to them in a friendly way. So not like saying like image 584792, but you can say, oh, it's a cute cat, and then people know. For example, blind people know what the image is, and they can understand the context. Also, for example, people using or people with limitations, with, for example, a broken arm or blind people, they can use a device like this to navigate a website easily, for example, to have it accessible. So why is accessibility important for your business or for the business you work for? There are three main topics. First one is to minimize the legal risk. The second one is increase the market reach, and the third one is enhancing your brand. The first one, so minimizing legal risk. So in the UK, under the DDA, it is illegal to discriminate against disabled people when recruiting and employing people. So discrimination is defined as not making reasonable adjustments to support everyone, regardless of disability or ability, it doesn't matter. This applies, of course, to making services or education available via the medium of websites. And then if you take a look at, for example, this graph, you can see there are a lot of lawsuits being set up to companies or to products that are not accessible. For example, in 2017, there were only, let's say, 814 lawsuits against products or companies which are not accessible. But then you see there's a major increase of 177% over 2017, from 2017 to 2018, where you can see the lawsuits have been really going up because there are just more laws around this. Also, because the European Commission has recognized the W3C's Web Accessibility Initiative. And it's recommended to use it that your products are being accessible for most of the people. So it's really a legal thing also to minimize it. Then the second one, increasing market reach. When you only make websites or any products for one specific type of person, you are really excluding other types of people, even if you don't realize it. For example, people who are blind, they still want to buy clothes, but they can't access your website, or it's not accessible to your website, then they can't buy it. So you're really missing out on a market of people. So let's give an example. For example, Tesco, it's an online grocery market, and it was one of the first one to enter in the online grocery markets. They wanted early on to ensure Tesco.com, which was accessible, and therefore serving every possible customer. So they really wanted to serve everyone. They worked in 2001 to make the home grocery service at Tesco.com more accessible to blind customers, and by the launch of separate new site of the separate new site, an accessible alternative. Yeah, it was tested by more than 70 blind and partially sighted people, and that's why they made a faster version. As you can see, the results speak for themselves. For example, the revenue from online sales increased to 13 million annually. Their pre-Christmas orders increased to 700,000 orders per week, compared to the only 28,000 deliveries per average week in 2000, and 70,000 in 2001. And their sales went from like 52 million in 2000 to 235 million in 2001. So it's really, if you enhance or if you increase your market, you will reach a lot of more people and therefore buy more products and reach more people. Third one is enhancing your brand. So while everyone should support accessibility, it doesn't mean that everyone does. But by supporting accessibility, you're really acting in the best interest of the community. Everyone loves it, and this is something you can be proud of. Showing that you care about everyone in society, that can only enhance a brand image. And as professionals, it's our job to try and produce the best quality output we can. And that's by making responsible choices in policy and generally demonstrating that you are implementing those policies. You can create an extremely positive brand image where people really think you care about your users, and that makes your brand, it really enhances your brand. Then a short talk about designing with accessibility in mind. So as I said, I'm not going to talk about really design details, but just on some general guidelines. First of all, you need to think and design with all the requirements in mind from start. For example, think of your users who may not be able to access your website via either tool, like a mouse, keyboard, monitor, etc. So really think of your users as broad as possible. For example, blind people with only one arm, for example, or other people with disabilities. Really think and design with it from the start to include all of them. Know you're going to solve it for more than one kind of user. So everyone you're designing for, So you want to solve as much a problem for as much as people, and don't treat accessibility like something you can just bolt at the end, but really take it in your requirements at the beginning, etc. So to give some examples, first of all, contrast is one of the most popular easy wins, as you can say, to benefit, to give a good color to contrast to everyone, so everyone can read and see everything correct and without any issues. Then the next example is about graphs or charts. If you're only using colors for charts, you might miss people, for example, with color blindness or just other types of people. But if you, for example, include simple labels like ABC or other kind of labels, but also some patterns maybe inside of the graph, people with visual limitations can recognize or see the differences between the bar charts, for example, and they can really benefit from it to use your products. And a last example is, for example, for form fields, the best practice is actually to put your labels. So a form field label is to put it outside of your label, because it's also not only design-wise, but also technically it's best to design it like this, because people with disabilities will recognize this faster, the form field, or see what the form is about, or the input field is about. Also regarding contrast, for example, or really small details, you can really benefit from it by just putting it outside instead of having those fancy input fields. All right, that's around design. So next one is about developing with accessibility in mind, and therefore I would like to hand over the presentation to Yannick. We just need to see how to switch the presentations, but I think it's You can just screen share your presentation, I think. Yep.
Yep. Normally you should already see my screen. Just can hide. And the presentation now. Move you guys to another screen.
I also need to stop presenting because otherwise you might see two presentations. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so everybody now sees my presentation normally. There will be time for questions afterwards, I guess. But I'm going to go on with my experience as a developer with accessibility in mind. So, like I already said in the beginning, I have some experience as a front-end developer. I have been a full-time front-end developer for 8 years now, but I've had not so much experience in accessibility parts. I never had a client where I actually had to focus on accessibility because I was always working on internal projects. But that changed last month when Odina gave me the chance to follow a training around accessibility, focused on the developer side, and actually learned a lot of very interesting things there. And one of the most interesting things for me as a developer, but also for every other developer in the room here, would be the tab approach. So, oh, my slides are on full screen, by the way. Let's fix that. No, present. That's the one. Quickly skip through all the slides. Yeah. Okay. No, not okay. Okay, sorry for that. So it's the tab way of working. So why is this interesting? Most of the applications we make as a developer are made or tested using the mouse and the keyboard, but mostly the mouse actually. All the applications I made before are just tested by the tester using a mouse. So the first challenge I can give you: go to your favorite website. Don't do it now, but do it later today. Go to your favorite website and try to tap through it. You'll probably notice that it won't work as you would expect. If it does work, it's very good. That actually means that website or that provider is really trying to make an accessible website. If it doesn't work, it shows a bit a lack of effort to apply the accessibility rules. So when you can tap to your website, what can we conclude? The first thing is the developer uses the right semantics. You can also conclude he uses default interactive components or takes a lot of effort to make his own custom components interactive and usable via the keyboard. And why is that interesting? If you can see that using the tab, it also means that assistive technology can use the semantics it is used to. Assistive technology is also tailored to use the default interactive HTML components, so the inputs, the buttons, yeah, all other forms, these kind of things. So the assistive technology also uses these default interactive components, and it also follows a tab order. So by doing tab on your website, on during your development, you actually see a lot of common ways of working between you and assistive technology. But be warned, it's not a perfect way of testing it, but it's a quick way. And we as a developer, we want to have a quick way to test as much as possible, of course. So if your website is tabbable, it doesn't mean it's accessible, but if it is accessible, it means it's tabbable. So it's a good way to test that. Now, during that training I got, I also got this information. And then I said, oh, okay, look, I have my own projects I work on. I'm going to see how well I perform on this tab test. So let's go to this website we made. For Corona, we needed a system to assign a seat to a person for a certain day. So we just had a simple interface. You could select the date somewhere, and you could say could see the free seats. You select the seat, you give it a name, and that means you're going to sit there to write your name right. So that's the application. Now let's do it via tab. My first tab focuses on the header. That's actually a good pattern. That's what is expected for websites. The next step immediately goes to my floor picker. Okay, so I try to pick a floor and nothing actually happens. Okay, no problem. I tap again. I try again. Okay, now I can select the floor. Have been words, I guess. Next up jumps to the cookie policy. So there's no way for me to even select a date or even select a seat. And that's all I can do. If you see, I'm back here at the top of my Chrome browser. So there is very limited accessibility on this particular site. And that's because we had to go fast. There was no pressure to provide accessibility. And well, as a developer, I didn't have the knowledge to make a perfect website. Although I know about area labels, I know all these things. I just don't apply them very well, apparently. So what did I do? I improved it. I looked at the code again. I looked what I did wrong. I'm going to check out the new project with accessibility applied. It's going to build. It's also called Bubblicious in the general idea that we had to live in bubbles during that period of Corona. It's still building. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So when I tap to the application now, again, you see the header being highlighted. The next step is going to highlight the first dates. Using the arrow keys, I can easily go to all days. And when I have the date I want to plan myself upon, I tap enter again, and I can easily select a floor. So I'm going for the first floor here. I tap again, and my focus is now on one of the desks here. Okay. Apparently the order of the desk is not as I expected. That's not a big issue, of course. You can still select a date. It's only just a name. Select. And then on next tab, you can actually fill in your name. Tom and Bob. Yep. And then I can do this reservation. I'm not going to do that now because then some random people will be sitting in the room there. That would be a bit weird. But now you saw it, using the tab, I can easily go through this application. So let's make a quick look at what I changed, because these are very small things. I mean, you see them, you're like, yeah, of course you have to do them. And let's take the master branch. Here we go. You're all familiar with code, I guess. So here comes some codes. So the first thing, tabbing through the reservation date list. The actual thing I had to change there. We used to work with just simple diffs all the way down. And the action there was just a click action somewhere on the diff. Don't find it immediately. But what did I have to change? I had to provide an input. By just providing an input, in this case a radio button, because if you think about it, it's just selecting one single value from a list of values. A radio button is actually pretty convenient to use there. So it's just a radio button. You link it via the name. You can have the attribute for to the ID. We have to add the checked attributes, depending if it's checked or not. Nothing very special there. And then, of course, when it is focused, you need to indicate that it has a certain focus to your users. But that's basically the thing that I had to change. This part of the code remained exactly the same, just as a CSS, it all remained exactly the same. The only thing I had to do was adding the inputs and hiding it from sight, because you don't want the little bullet being there. That makes for a very simple tabbing to that panel. The next one was a bit tricky. I'm using an SVG there, and SVG is very convenient to create these awesome looking interfaces, but they are a bit of a pain to apply accessibility to. But it is possible, and that's actually very cool. If you ever want to make an graphic or something, you can make it actually accessible if you're using SVG. But what did I do there? The desk, not much. One mistake towards accessibility, I had an ID that should be a class because this is duplicated a lot of times. You have multiple desks. But what did I actually change to apply the accessibility? Go down there. We made the checkbox. Every desk has now the role checkbox. And very basically, that's all I had to do. Because it is a checkbox, you need to have the area check label. By default, I want it to be false. And also a label to tell the user that it is actually a checkbox, a desk with a certain name. These kind of things. Nothing too fancy there. And the tab index, that's also an important part. You need to have a tab index. The is active makes the indicates that the floor is active. If it has no a negative tab index, that means it's going to be ignored by the tabbing order. But that's about it. That's all I had to do to also make this SVG tabbable. One small thing you also should do on an SVG, add a description just so the user knows what he is actually tabbing through. But that's about it. That made the SVG already accessible. And then last but not least, in the reservation date panel, no, the reservation details, that's the one. That's where you fill in the names in this case. Also a form, add a label there so everyone knows what they are filling in. Next up, link the labels to the inputs. That's a big mistake of myself. You always should do that just because when a user focuses an input, a screen reader or any other accessibility technology uh, will immediately know what the input is for, thanks to the description that is in the label. And then some small thing, give it a type submit, not a type button, but that is not a big issue, of course. But it's just following the rules. And by following the rules, these are actually the major changes that had to be done just to go from an application that was completely inaccessible to an application that is somewhat accessible. I'm still going to say it's not perfect probably, but you can already do something on the application using assistive technology or using your keyboard only. And that's a big difference already. And you saw it's just minor changes. So let's get back to the slides. So the takeaways here, or in Dutch. And now they're in English, perfect. So see it as a challenge. It should just be another challenge to your list. As a developer, you want clean code, you want reusability, and now you also want accessibility. It's just be aware of it, do it all the time, and if you're used to it, it's just going to be a part of your workflow. It's also more about thinking, what is my application trying to accomplish? Like we have this fancy ground plan, you can select the desk, you can assign a person to it, but what is the core of the application? And then we see it's a date selection using radio buttons, it's a share selection using checkboxes, it is assigning people, actually it's assigning just random strings to desks. So that's a simple input list. And then you want to save it using a submit button. It's very, very easy. It doesn't seem like it's that easy as an application, but it is basically just that. And then also adapt your workflow a bit. As a front-end developer, I always try to make a full-blown component, beautiful component, nowadays also an accessible component, but actually just start with a component that works, that gets the job done. And then pay attention to the labels and the roles you assign to it using accessibility and area tags. Do the testing via the tab, the arrows, the space, see that it actually works without the mouse. If you have the budget and the time for it, try to use real assistive technology. It's just also a mind opener if you ever do that, because you're going to know that it's a pain to use the web using assistive technologies sometimes. And then the last step, really the last step is apply the styling. Just because the styling is actually only for people who can use the mouse, who can perfectly see the screen, who has an optimal device to use your website. Apply the styling for them. And that's actually all I had to say about this. Yeah, that was the demo. So back to Jonas.
Yeah, thank you, Yannick. I think we're done here with our demo. So if you just go here, I can also screen share again. There you go. So you should see my slides again.
Yeah.
Voila, developing. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for coming to our talk, and thank you for listening. If you want to contact us, you can see the contact details there. Actually, I forgot to change it, but this phone number is not right. It was just a placeholder for phone number. So
mine isn't right either. So don't call
yeah,
that
indeed.
number.
Yeah. So you can contact us by email or anywhere else on Teams or here in Gather. If you want to talk about accessibility, you can also contact us here. Thank you for listening. I wish you a great day for the rest. Yeah, that's it.